morning, good afternoon, good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank my colleagues to join us today as speakers, and especially I would to thank everybody that spent your time here with us, engaging with this so important thematic topic on geographic disaggregation. Before moving forward, I would like to briefly introduce the expert group on integration of statistical and geospatial information. Expert group that now I'm currently have the honor to serve as a co-chair. My name is Claudio Stenner. I work from the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics. The next, please. Next slide, please. So this is the steering group of the expert group on integration of statistical and geospatial information. We have a representative from all around the world. This is only the steering group, but we have also members from more than 40 countries spread all around the world. This is a statistical commission expert group. This expert group is designing to support the work of the commission, the work of the member states in terms of integration of statistical and geospatial information in all kinds of statistical domains. The expert group is also works to support the sustainable development goals in many different ways. It helps to identify territorial inequalities. It's crucial to really leave no one behind. So we are here to help you. We are here to help every country. We are here to help every expert group, every working group from statistical domain to implement better integration of statistical and geospatial information to guarantee a geographic disaggregated data. Next slide, please. So I'd like to speak briefly with this session, the 2026 session of the Statistical Commission. This year, the expert group is presented for endorsement, the second edition of the Global Statistical Geospatial Framework. This is our main work, our main publication, our main framework. The GSTF provides a complete guidance in how to integrate statistical and geospatial information. This second edition has a lot of improvements in terms of language, in terms of usability of the framework, but not change the essential principles of the framework. It remains the same. But I invited everybody to download the second edition from the Statistical Commission site and show how we reorganizing the framework and how it can provide guidance on integration and statistical and geographic information. We also presented a first version of a paper on geographical disaggregation. This paper is base of this webinar here. So I also invited everybody to see this paper on the Statistical Commission website. This year, we also presented our strategy toward 2030 and how you can imagine we can accelerate the implementation of integration of statistical and geospatial information, how we can imagine this process. Next, please. Before I move forward, I'd like to show you a very brief example on how crucial geographic disaggregated data are. As you see in this picture, there is a hard boundary between a very wealthy area and a very poor area that you call it, the slum area in Brazil, that you call it favela. That may be a problem in terms of statistical production. Next, please. That's another picture, the same situation. This other situation is in Leme, it's a Rio de Janeiro beach. We have a very wealthy community close to the beach and a very poor community on the hills behind the buildings. Next, please. In this case, we have a problem with statistics. If you see this boundary on this Leme neighborhoods that include a very wealthy community and a very poor community in the same area. And this area has 42.9% of its population with higher education. That's means. But next, please. Next. That's a kind of trap of the average. Why I'm saying this? Next, please. The real world is if you separate the data from the poor areas, from the slum areas, from the to the very wealthy communities, the reality is the wealthy communities, the non-slum area of this part of the city has 49.9% of its population with higher education, and the people who live in the slum areas has only 1.3% of this population with higher education. So that's the reality. If you don't have the geographic segregation, if you don't have the right geography, you can't see the reality. We will leave a lot of people behind. Next, please. So now I'd like to invite my colleague Josh from the US Census Bureau that he will talk a little bit more about the expert group working, and we will conduct a debate on this session. Josh, the floor is yours.
Fantastic. Thank you, Claudio, and thank you for that example. I think that really brings home exactly what we're talking about, the importance of that disaggregation of data using the smallest geographies that we can to produce relevant statistics, and how often those actionable statistics just get are not able to be produced given the geographies that we use today, and how important it is because decisions happen at the regional and municipal scales, as we know, and these national averages, just as Claudio said, really wash out and hide the local disparities and vulnerable populations. And so most policy implementation and service delivery happens, as we know, at the regional, municipal, community levels, where decision makers need locally relevant data. And without that localized evidence, without local data, governments risk targeting resources inefficiently. I'm sure we all have examples in our own communities where communities most in need miss this important resource allocations. And so to put it simply, if we want to leave no one behind, we must ensure that our data systems leave no place behind. And so I want to just take a moment to acknowledge the many colleagues and fellow travelers that we have grappling with these issues, and recognize the amazing work that's been done to date already by the Working Group on Geospatial Indicators of the Interagency and Expert Group on SDG Indicators. We have Mary Smith, who co-edited and championed the paper that's brought us here today from the Working Group on Geospatial Indicators. But especially I wanted to recognize the team behind the Small Area Estimates Primer, the Geospatial Small Estimates Primer. We have colleagues from ESQUA today who've done amazing work building on these concepts, and many other resources, for example, from the Intersecretariat Working Group on Household Surveys. So I hope what we present today, our expert group's contributions, are helpful to the community and all the work that's been done to provide additional resources to help solve these issues and concepts. Because we know that disaggregation is hard, right? That's why we're all here today. That's why so many people are working on this. First, many statistical and administrative data sets were never designed for spatial integration. They may have been designed decades ago, before the geospatial capabilities that we have today were really implemented. And so geocoding is often incomplete or inconsistent, and makes reliable linkage across data sets very difficult. And second, as we move to finer geographic detail with our geospatial capabilities today, privacy and confidentiality risks increase. I think we all can think of examples of that. And this requires stronger governance and statistical disclosure protections to maintain public trust, which we then need to balance with appropriate data disclosure. We need that data. And third, administrative boundaries rarely align with real-world social, economic, or environmental processes. Our administrative boundaries are units for dissemination, are often take long time to adjust. Once they're implemented, they tend to remain stable. And we know that social, economic, and environmental processes are anything but stable. They're constantly changing. And this can distort the analysis and complicate historical comparisons over time. And so together, these challenges show that disaggregation is not simply about producing smaller geographic units. It requires building integrated, coordinated national data systems. And that's what brings us to our contribution, this expert group's contribution to the discussion, the GSGF 2.0. And the Global Statistical Geospatial Framework addresses these systemic challenges by providing a common set of principles for integrating statistical and geospatial information. The GSGF does not replace national systems, it helps them work together, ensuring consistent geocoding, interoperability, and protection of privacy and confidentiality. And by establishing location as a shared integration key, the GSGF allows data from surveys, administrative sources, and Earth observation to be linked reliably. The 5 principles of the GSGF create that structural foundation needed to produce high-quality location-based statistics at scales that support real decision-making. This is a great graphic from our colleagues in ESQA. The GSGF enables integration by providing consistent approaches for assigning geocodes or coordinates to official statistics and administrative data, allowing data sets from different sectors, such as health, environment, economic statistics, to be linked through location. This integrated foundation is what ultimately supports advanced methods like spatial disaggregation, we'll be discussing today, grid-based statistics, and small area estimation. Thanks again to ESQA for the graphic illustrating how implementation of the GSGF enables the aggregation of geocoded unit-level data to a variety of relevant geographies. Now, despite all the progress that we've discussed and all the different teams working, many countries still face capacity constraints. Skills, infrastructure, and institutional coordination can be lacking. Scaling pilot projects into sustainable national production systems can be a major hurdle. Integrating non-traditional data sources such as Earth observation can require new quality frameworks, statistical validation, and new technical staff. So privacy and confidentiality, again, still remain major considerations when producing disaggregated location-based statistics. So addressing these challenges requires collaboration across agencies, international guidance, and shared implementation. But we are seeing a global shift toward hybrid data ecosystems, combining surveys, administrative data, Earth observation, and geospatial infrastructure. Many countries are increasingly adopting grid-based or location-enabled statistical dissemination models. There's a growing recognition that integration is not simply technical, but that it requires governance, institutional coordination, and shared standards. And these changes are helping transform fragmented data systems into cohesive national evidence frameworks. This evolution is moving geospatial disaggregation from experimental projects toward mainstream statistical production. Now, these challenges and opportunities are not theoretical. They're being addressed in real time by the organizations represented on this panel, and they're going to share practical lessons from implementing these approaches in their national contexts, and are looking forward to seeing these presentations. We are going to start our panel discussion with Ms. Mary Smith, of Statistics Ireland, co-chair of the IAG SDGs of WGGI, the Working Group on Geospatial Information. And the question we have posed to her this morning is, how does geospatially enabled data disaggregation strengthen SDG indicator production, and how does this work support the priorities of the IAG SDGs? I believe Mark Iliff is going to take the screen from me, and Mary will begin her presentation in just a moment.
Thank you, Josh. Mark, are
Thank you, Mary.
you able to share the slides?
Should just be coming through now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Josh and Claudio. As Josh said, I represent the Working Group on Geospatial Information. I'm the co-chair along with Sandra Moreno of Colombia, and Mark Iliff, UNGGIM, is the Secretariat. This presentation focuses on the paper the WGGI published last year on rescuing the SDGs with geospatial information. Next slide, please, Mark. So the Working Group on Geospatial Information, or WGGI for short, is a working group of the UN Interagency and Expert Group on SDG Indicators. So that's the IAG for short. And we're a working group of the IAG, and we are focused on bringing geography to the SDG indicators. Some of the key resources we have is the SDG Geospatial Roadmap, which acts as a guide for statistical offices in implementing geospatial information and the reporting process of the SDG indicators. The shortlist on the SDG indicators looks at the indicators through a geographical lens, and we have a shortlist A and B. A focuses on the indicators where geospatial information can provide the indicator itself, and examples of these are environmental indicators, for example, the extent of ecosystems and so on. And as Josh mentioned, some these natural phenomenon aren't based on grid-based systems, so we have to account for geographical and location of particular indicators. And shortlist B is indicators where the geospatial data can provide data disaggregation and adhere to the principle of the SDGs in leave no one behind. We have a number of reports, such as the Global and Complementary Geospatial Data for SDGs and the Land Cover reports, which support the work we're doing. And this focuses on rescuing the SDGs with geospatial information, the paper we published last year, and we look at data disaggregation. Next, please. So the rescuing paper looks at how geospatial information can transform the production, measurement, monitoring, and dissemination of the SDG indicators. Big ideas from the paper include the 2030 agenda, obviously, and how we can ensure it benefits from geospatial information. And there's a short summary for policymakers as well. And we identify key stakeholders and ideas, and empowering the stakeholders to overcome challenges and embrace opportunities that geospatial information offers. We look at the role of new data and technologies and globally available data sets for enabling local and national SDG monitoring. And as mentioned earlier, a lot of these technologies and data are only recently available and were not available at the time the SDG indicator framework was developed. Outcomes of the rescuing paper include identifying issues such as under-reporting of the indicators and the importance of geographic disaggregation within the statistics. We looked at the metadata as part of the IAG's 2025 comprehensive review of the indicator framework last year, and we proposed quick wins also methodological advancements to improve the indicator reporting process. We provide enhanced guidance on how geography impacts the indicators, and this looks at resolution at country and global level. Next slide, please. So just very briefly, I won't read all of this, but we understand that geospatial information and Earth observation can provide new and consistent data sources which enhance the location-based variables and support and inform official statistics and indicators. Next slide, please. So looking at the what and how, so obviously the geospatial disaggregation to enhance the reporting process, and how we are doing this is through implementing frameworks guided by the SDG Geospatial Roadmap, which supports statistical and geospatial actors within the global indicator framework. We promote collaboration and focus on increasing collaboration at all levels, agencies, ministries, and peers in other countries. And we're focusing again on the incorporating the geospatial dimension into the metadata and looking at the indicators through a geographical lens. We prioritize country-led and country-owned data, but it's also important to recognize that there are data gaps, and these data gaps can be filled with globally available data, and these can highlight where and how countries can invest in the future. The work we're doing is supported by simple and impactful storytelling through our story maps, and the data visualization of this work is quite important. Next slide. So here's a link and a QR code to the story maps. You can explore it. Next, please. And some live links here to some of the examples at country level and the particular goals that it focuses on. So I invite you to explore this data. If there's anything that's of relevance to your country or organization, please get in touch with us. Next slide. And just as Josh mentioned, the integration of statistics and geospatial information expert group, we are part of this group and we're on the steering group, and we work closely with the ISGI. Josh's team on the task team on disaggregation of statistics by geographic location. So we're working with him on this and supporting this work. The 2030 vision, again, we're working with them on that, and the global data where there's methodology and scientifically approved methodology for supporting the indicators. And looking beyond 2030, we are focused on a future-oriented approach, which will require developing the geospatial reporting indicators. And we focus on institutionalizing the capacity for local to global integration and ensuring geospatial information will underpin all future development frameworks, both national and international. So this will be a foundation to shape sustainable development beyond 2030. Next slide. Thank you very much. And this is just a very quick visual impact of the work we're doing, accessing public transport in Colombia, goal 11 and 9, and then the story map, looking at annual temperature anomalies with the World Meteorological Organization. Our details are here, so get in touch with us informally if you think there's anything we can support. Thank you very much. And thanks, Mark. Back to you, Josh.
That is great, Mary. Thank you very much. These are great story maps. I'm sure everybody looks forward to digging into those if they haven't already. The next person we have, next presenter that I have on our list is Mr. Sohail Rastan. And I believe, Sohail, you're going to share your slides with us?
Yes, I was going to start sharing my slide. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's do it. I can see in the map that the center of the African Sahara is getting cooler. Anyway, so it's an interesting one. Let's go. So you see my my screen, and this is, do you see my presentation? Just
Yes, sir.
quick yes. Perfect.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger presentation. So
Perfect.
today I'm gonna basically express something. I'm from ESQA in Lebanon. We are one of the five economic and social commissions. This is linkable. I'm gonna go into our portal and we'll show you some examples. And I have about 20 slides. The first one is important. This one I'm gonna spend something around 3-4 minutes in it. The rest are going to go very fast, and the last one is the most important. So as long as I give you the picture, is exactly what we're doing here. So this is available for everybody. You can basically go in and you see the Arab Development Portal, and we have a small section in it, which is the geo stories in it. And in the geo stories, you can see that we publish stories, 1 or 2 stories once every 3 to 4 months. For example, I can go through, I don't know, I'm mapping damage, okay, in the crisis that happened in Lebanon, for example. I'm going to go through it very quickly. And you see that we try to see the damages happen in the southern part of Lebanon, and then we're going to bring data from multiple sources, and we're going to see the extent of the damage and see the buildings on top of it, and try to basically map it all together and look exactly where are the damages and validate it with the ground truthing data, and bring in satellite images and look at them as well and classify them, and then basically present in terms of the policy framework in terms of the cost of the damage that happens. But this is not what I would like to talk about today, okay? So let me go back and I will show you something else there. Another thing, for example, I would like to show you in terms, okay, that's a good one actually. Mapping schools in Lebanon and how far is it for children to walk to their schools, because the quality of education in Lebanon we found is been declining. So the question was, is it because of the number of schools or is it because of something else? So we mapped multiple layers, as you can see, and we estimated the distances. And at the end of the day, we categorized in terms of the advantaged, disadvantaged people. And the conclusion was no, 90% of the children in Lebanon have access to schools within 30-minute walk. So the conclusion is we don't need to build schools. The problem is somewhere else. Okay, so, but again, this is not the issue I would like to talk about in it today. So one more thing I'd like to basically maybe share with you, which I like. Oh, here, when we speak about the Arab world, we think that about the Arab world, the 22 countries, is about a desert with a camel, right? So this is the first thing come into our mind. But then I asked my team that, no, we need to basically present the 22 countries in a different realm. And then we did the flora and fauna of the Arab region. And then we figure out it's a pretty rich ecosystems, right?
So,
and then yes.
Can I break in just for one moment? I'm sorry. It looks like there are a number of people in the audience that can't see your slides. And I just wanted to check in with the audience and see if there's anyone that can see the slides. I'm seeing them quite well. I don't know if it's...
Josh, I'm wondering if the speakers can see it, but not the audience for some reason.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of thumbs up saying they can see it, so it's not everyone.
Okay.
So I hate to ask the audience to leave and then come back in, but that might be the resolution since it's not a systemic issue. So I'm going to go ahead and, with apologies to folks that are having, to people that are having problems seeing the slides, I think we're going to proceed. And I encourage everyone to maybe leave the room and come back in. I'm sorry for the interruption, Sohail. Why don't we go ahead and proceed? Thank you.
No worries. And the slides will be sent to anybody who would like to see it. That's fine. As long as they hear my voice, that's okay. So anyway, so we went and we brought whatever we can in terms of how to basically represent the ecosystems across the Arab world, and we showcased that it is beyond the desert and the camel. So again, it is slower today. I can understand this one. So again, in terms of the power of the data and what type of ecosystems we do have per location and per distance. No, then the fundamental things I would like to talk about today is about the concept of economic landscapes on the pulse. This is basically how can we use multi-layers geospatial data and economic data. I mean, coming back from Statistics Canada, which I retired from there, in terms of produce the pulsation of a country. This is not a new concept, of course, what we call the gridded GDP. So we took this about 2 years ago. We took Jordan as an example, and then everybody knows, I mean, we took population, length. We can take nightlife. We did not do it this time. But we took the economic sectors in multiple dimensions, and we tried to basically play with it to produce a gridded GDP for Jordan. And then we weighted them. So the policymakers can go there and start weighting them, okay? And you can see the pulse somewhere become to be in the capital. But if you change the weight, then the pulses change, okay? So you can see that if you go to more the agriculture sector, then the pulsation will change. Now, this is what I would like to basically present. And hence, I'm going to go to the major presentation, which is the slide. Now, let me just get out of that. And this is the slide, right? You see the slide. So the idea here is the gridded GDP. And I think this is the best tabula rasa where GIS can basically serve statistical commissions, okay? So I think it's a time for a new GDP accounting and estimating framework. We do not have one yet, unless somebody tells me that there is one. As a UN standard, we do not have, similar to the SNA, similar to the system of environmental economic accounting. So we need a best practice, guideline, and then adopt standard. These are the references. I did a very quick, it's a disclaimer. The entire presentation, the one that you can see, has basically assisted by Cloud Anthroponic, helped me and do that. So it needs some human intelligence validation is required. So please help me to validate that. But I asked Cloud, and I spent something about maybe 3 hours to generate these slides. And I would like to underline this. For the last 1 year, the direction of the laboratory has changed tremendously because of the AI. So the AI is coming in terms of helping us to generate beautiful things if we know how to communicate with it. So the first, okay, let's admit this person here. So usually the SNA, there are some hints into the gridded GDP. The SIA has mentioned in it in applications and extensions. And our global statistical geospatial framework, it states that we can make it happen. Of course, you either go with population, or you go with light, or you combine. Okay, but none of them have this system of national account conceptual framework in it, right? Then it has been expanded, and some people have started to basically use shared socioeconomic pathways, population weight. Some people start to bring in vegetation indices and CO2 emissions to generate the gridded type of a GDP. Okay. So why the gap assumed to exist fundamentally, I think, is number 4. If there's a tension between accounting precision and spatial estimation. I think this is, we need to go beyond that. And what are the opportunities? Of course, there is no official standard yet. So there's a room to pioneer, especially for data scarce steps. So that's what I would like to basically underline. So we need to pioneer right now. So some official sub-national GDPs. I'm pretty surprised. I mean, there are 83 countries produce some type of a disaggregated sub-national GDPs, okay? Brazil was an eye-catching 5,570. I mean, how they do it, I have to sit down with my Brazilian colleagues. Do they do the system of national accounts? Do they have supply and use table specialized? Do they allocate the addresses in the business registry? Or do they just multiply by a weighted population? We need to basically set with, and the US is another one, and then we have the UK, of course, you have Canada, Japan, South Korea. All of this are producing some type of a disaggregated GDP, which I'm surprised that I see that there are there. Okay, of course, the European Union, they use the nomenclature of territorial units of statistics, if they basically allocate to it some type of a added value in terms of the pulsation in the country themselves. And that's the summary, okay, of the countries that produce. Of course, some global disaggregators, I mean, we have the database of subnational economic outputs. It's an academic research. Of course, we have OECD. They're trying their contribution as well. And then we have another global grid cells in terms of the aggregated GDP from University of Chicago. And there are many more of these, and just some of them. Okay, and these are the tiers from municipality to metropolitan area to sub-regional system and to the state and provinces. The idea is I would like to basically bring this into the table. We would like to activate a United Nations endorsed gridded GDP accounting and estimating framework. This is what I'm calling in this meeting, okay? For many reasons, for where the impact is, where it matters, and where it affects. So it should be a standardized framework within frameworks. So we can use the SNA and the SIA and the UN geospatial frameworks. We can amalgamate them together, okay? And we can do it these days, thanks to the multi-power AI that we do have. And I proposed a roadmap established up to this year. We can establish secure funding and develop it, then standardize it. And by 2030, we implement it. My final slide is from the London group. I know many of you know the London group, which is the group that started the system of environmental economic accounting. I would like to propose the Beirut group on gridded GDP accounting and estimation. Okay, thank you so much. And that is my slides. And it's interesting, the AI generated this for me as Beirut, and it is basically the Rosha in our capital in Beirut. Very smart AIs here. And this is where my contacts are. Please feel free to communicate, and thank you so much. I can stop sharing.
That was fantastic, Sohail. I wish we had much longer to go through that much more slowly. I'm looking forward to seeing how this develops and to participate in that. And I'm sure you would appreciate anyone who's on this to contact and get involved. That was great. Next presenter we have is Mr. Richard Tonkin of SCAP. And Richard, can you share some thoughts with us on which institutional and government arrangements have proven most effective in enabling sustainable geospatial data disaggregation across countries in the Asia-Pacific region, or whatever's on your mind on this topic? We're always glad to hear from you, Richard. So thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I'll just try and... Okay.
There it is. That's great.
Yep.
And then we lost it for a moment. We had it.
Is that showing okay?
I'm not seeing it. It came up and then it disappeared again. So maybe if you could try sharing one more time. I don't know if anybody else can see it. Maybe a thumbs up. I think we're on the same boat at this point. Not seeing it, Richard. Thank you, Mom.
Sorry, but
It's okay.
it's doing.
There we go. I'm seeing it, Richard. There we go. All right, Richard, I can see it. It looks like other people giving thumbs up, so others can see it. Take it away, Richard. Thank you very much.
I can't see my. Sorry. Okay, so you got it now. Yep. Hello.
Yeah, no, we lost it, Richard. We lost it, Richard. We had it for a moment.
Lost it.
Yeah, I tell you what, would maybe it makes sense if you email it to Mark quickly, and we can have Denise come on for a moment. Yeah, and we'll circle back to you in just a minute, Richard. No worries.
Yeah. Okay.
These things happen. So,
cheers.
Denise, I wonder if you would be able to share.
I will try sharing. For whatever reason, my camera does not want to join the meeting today. So, but I will
No
try and
worries.
see if I can get the slides to share. Okay.
Well, Denise is, let me introduce, Denise is from the Place Foundation. I'm sure you're capable of introducing yourself. I can see your slides. I see it.
That's a good start.
And there we go. Great. And the question we posed to Denise was, why is geospatially enabled data disaggregation at regional and local levels essential for informed decision making and for truly leaving no one and no place behind? Pun intended, I assume.
Unintended, indeed.
Yeah,
and a really big
that's right.
topic. So thank you for the intro, Josh. And I will, I guess, do this through a bit of a lens of explaining what Place is, why it came to be, and what we do as an organization. So hopefully that will help illustrate the answer to those questions. So Place is a nonprofit data institution, which might be a term that you haven't heard before. It's a fairly novel concept. It's something that is built around a data trust, but it was founded really on an understanding that these days high quality mapping data is critical for any country to be working with, whether you're working at a national level or you're working down at that local level. And in particular, Place really felt that some of the greatest need in the world was in our rapidly expanding urban spaces, particularly for those which are undermapped or underrepresented throughout the world. So what we do as an organization is we form a relationship or a partnership with government agencies across the world. So we do not work in a country that we don't have a formal MOU to work with the National Mapping Agency or the relevant agency. We work with that country, I guess not in a traditional, contractor type of way, but in a way that helps them build both capacity and also get hold of the data. So I've heard people like Mary and Josh talk already today about where we've still got incredibly existing gaps in the data that we need, whether that's about local transport or energy or roads or people. What Place does then is we will actually work to come into the country. We will do that either ourselves or work with other companies to collect high resolution imagery. I think what's interesting and why it's really relevant to be talking about this these days is the technology shift that's happened, particularly in the last 5 years, means that the way we can collect information, data and knowledge has really, really shifted, and imagery is a critical part now. I've heard people already reference Earth observation data, which is another way you can describe imagery here too, but it's a really rich and incredibly important resource for most people and most countries now to work with to help understand their population and their environment. What we do then, and this I think is really important, is in terms of accessibility, any data that Place collects is retained sovereignly and owned by the country that we work with. But really importantly, getting it out to people who may be statisticians, they may be researchers, trying to unlock that data and make sure that it can be used by the people across the world that need to use it is critically important. And that's where the Place Trust comes into play here. So Place Trust is given a copy, a licensed copy in perpetuity to steward that copy for use by trusted users across the world, as well as ensuring that the countries retain that sovereignly owned data as well. So it's a novel structure. I guess now you're wondering, where are those gaps we're trying to fill? Well, we're obviously across Africa, so you'll see a number of those here, and I'll flip through a lot of slides here quite quickly at this point. And we're working across more land states. And I'll just pause here because I think to go back to some of the points here around the really important aspect of the disaggregated data at local level. When you're down at small island state level, often satellite imagery and many of our other traditional data collection methods don't work particularly well because of the very small scales that you're working with. So it's really critical to be able to get down to as low a disaggregation as you can for many of these places in order for them to understand the nuances and differences about their population and their environments too. So this data approach, I guess, is absolutely critical when you're down into small spaces. So small island states, and also recently in Bangladesh has been where place has been as well. I will say that we only collect high resolution or positionally accurate imagery. So I think it was Josh that's mentioned something earlier about how geocoding has not always been super accurate in the way data has been collected. So imagery and the way we collect it is doing that positional accuracy is absolutely critical. We collect two types of data. So we look at high resolution aerial photography. And I think this is one of those things that's really important is we also collect what we call place ground or street view imagery, which gives you a very, very different and rich data source to help understand the landscape and the people and the population that you might be working in. So I'm going to jump through images really rapidly now at this point. What else can you do with that imagery? This allows you to very rapidly create things like digital surface models or digital elevation models to understand your landscape. It allows you to understand topographic products. I haven't got time, but I would play this one for you if I could. I think it's going to work right now. But 3D modeling obviously gives you a very, very rich understanding and very quick understanding of an urban landscape. And I think this is what I mentioned earlier. With the GeoAI and machine learning tools that we have now, imagery gives you a very, very, very rapid way of getting statistical information that used to take months for you to be able to understand. So whether that's understanding where the buildings are, how big they are, being able to rapidly use the imagery to create land use classification very quickly, looking at population census. So one of the big partners of Place has been World Pop out of University of Southampton, who have been refining further how they use the Place imagery to do that population census, which had traditionally been satellite imagery, but now with both aerial and also that ground level street feature, what that allows you to start doing is to really start collecting all of that feature information that you might want to understand about an urban landscape, and importantly, where that is. So buildings become really important here. How many windows are inside that building? What condition is the building in? All starts to be able to give you rich information to start estimating the living conditions of the population that might live there. The other one that it critically does is we'll recognize text. So this allows countries too to rapidly build data sets that they may traditionally have taken them months, if not years, to be able to build, if they can build them at all. But the imagery rapidly gives them that capacity to do so. So I guess that's a really very quick kind of jump through of what Place does. And I'll finish by saying, going back to the why is this data really important from a localized perspective. We talked about municipal councils and local city councils, which Place will also work quite a lot with. Those are often incredibly resource poor entities in trying to implement change on the ground. So I think looking for novel ways to get them the data they need in a format that they can also understand and use to be able to help them underpin their decision making is absolutely critical. Because they're asking questions like this. They're asking, how green is my city so I know where I can plant more trees? They're asking, if I make a road change or I'm going to build more buildings, who is going to be impacted by that infrastructure and how can I make sure that it's a positive impact, not a negative one? They're looking increasingly, because of climate change, at who's at risk of floods. How do I save them? How do I move them in my city? How do I build protection for them? And they're looking importantly, as our world heats, how resilient is things like our housing? Which are the buildings that are most at risk? Which are the populations that are most at risk? So I think it's really important to look at how we localize this data so that those councils and those local decision makers have got the tools that they need to be able to answer some of these questions and protect both their population and their environments. And with that, I will finish and give the screen back.
That was really great, Denise. And I really love how you wrapped that up with the environment, society, housing, economics, everything that we've been talking about. Great presentation. Thank you very much for that contribution. I think we want to continue and move on, and I will just announce to everyone at this point, our intent is to finish with all the speakers and still hold a bit of a discussion. It looks like, again, these have been fantastic presentations, and we're closing up on the top of the hour. I'm hoping the speakers will be able to stay on with us a bit, even if we extend past the hour. We understand if you need to drop off, but I know we, the organizers, will be here. We invite everybody to stay along with us as we wrap up this session. So we may run a bit over 10 a.m. and I encourage everybody to stay with us. Looks like our next presenter is here, Richard Tonkin, again, to talk about institutional governance arrangements in the Asia Pacific region. Thank you. Richard, take it away.
Thanks so much, Josh, and apologies for the slide sharing issues. So I just wanted to kind of answer this question kind of around the institutional governance arrangements really by drawing on some of ESCAP's experiences working with countries kind of in the Asia Pacific region, kind of on developing disaggregated statistics. So and I think the short answer to answer the question you set really is sustainable geospatial disaggregation. It's not about individual tools or data sets, and it really is about how the statistical and geospatial institutions work together in practice. So what I want to do is just highlight a number of things that we've consistently seen which really make a big difference, using a few examples from countries to illustrate them. So, of course, Denise and others have already stressed why this matters. So, national averages hide important regional and local disparities. For decision makers, it's not enough to know just how much, but we need to know where and who. So as soon as we turn our focus towards geospatially enabled statistics, then these institutional questions become unavoidable. Who holds the data? Who maintains the reference layers? How different systems connect? And I think certainly what I've found, what my colleagues in ESCAP have found, many countries struggle not because they don't have the data, but because systems have evolved separately. So we see some of these issues that have been highlighted repeatedly, kind of inconsistent geocoding, incomplete metadata, legal institutional frameworks that weren't designed for routine cross-agency data sharing, infrastructure that isn't optimized for integrated workflows, and of course skills gaps as well. I think very importantly, none of these are purely technical problems. I think they're all really symptoms of institutional arrangements that haven't yet adapted to the demands for disaggregated data. So to me, this is where the GSGF is particularly useful, and it's great to see the updates to the GSGF being launched kind of at the Statistical Commission. So in my experience, one of the key values of the GSGF is that it provides a shared reference point for NSOs and National Geospatial Information Agencies, both in terms of assessing geostatistical capacity and for identifying priority actions to address those capacity gaps. I can I mention it every time I speak with you, Josh, but one initiative that's been particularly influential for me kind of is this high-level seminar kind of on the integration of statistical and geospatial information, which we organised with UNSD and Statistics Norway kind of in Bangkok the other year. Kind of, so at that seminar, kind of, we had a large number of countries from across the world using the GSGF self-assessment to have very practical conversations about roles, responsibilities, priorities, not in the abstract, but in relation to real national needs. That was really instrumental for certainly for us at ESCAP, I think also for other partners to help understand where follow-up support can be most effective. So yeah, I just want to pick up briefly on a couple of country experiences on work that's come out following that GSGF self-assessment. So in Kyrgyzstan, for example, led to the development of a joint national roadmap for geostatistical integration, clarifying roles between the National Statistical Office and the Land Agency. And that was also accompanied by the development of a national geostatistical data inventory and associated metadata, which again turned out to be a really critical enabler for producing priority subnational SDG indicators. In Indonesia, again, we've seen close collaboration between the Statistical Office, research agencies and sector ministries, combined with investment in shared data infrastructure, which has really enabled the production of rice production estimates, integrating survey and Earth observation data, which has allowed the production of estimates that are not only more geographically granular, but also more timely and more cost effective. You and others have already spoken about the importance of small area estimation, and I'd just like to take this opportunity to kind of, briefly highlight some of the work that we've been doing in that area. So together with various partners, we've recently launched new practical how-to guide on geospatial small area estimation, building on the SAE primer that was developed by the Intersecretariat Working Group on Household Surveys. This guide's designed to support practitioners in using open source tools to combine geospatial data from multiple sources to produce disaggregated estimates, whether it's of poverty or other priority indicators. And the reason I mention it here, not just because I think it's an incredibly helpful tool for statistics producers, but I found that when we've been working with countries kind of on this, these very practical applications, I found it a very effective way for surfacing some of these key issues kind of around institutional responsibilities, around data sharing, and around governance more broadly. So it's coming back to the question, kind of addressing it directly, based on these experiences from across the region, I want to highlight these three institutional factors which have consistently proven to be most important in supporting sustainable geospatial data disaggregation. So first is effective collaboration based on clear role definitions between national statistical offices and national geospatial information agencies. So, for example, in the example I shared in Kyrgyzstan, this was formalized through a joint roadmap aligned to the GSGF, which really clarified responsibilities and made collaboration routine rather than ad hoc. Second, establishing, maintaining strengthening national geospatial data or national geostatistical data inventory and associated metadata, bringing absolutely every single country I've worked with in Asia Pacific region and I think beyond as well. Weaknesses and limitations here have been a really key factor in holding back progress on data disaggregation. So yeah, I think that's absolutely key for me. And I think third is anchoring GSGF implementation in concrete priority use cases, whether that's price estimation or small area estimates of poverty or other indicators. Really found that this is what makes geostatistical integration real for institutions. It connects all of these issues which, coming from an NSO perspective, could be quite theoretical, kind of geocoding, reference layers, data sharing. It connects them to decisions which absolutely matter and I think can be a real enabler for progress. So I think I'll stop there. Hand back to you, Josh. Very happy to answer any questions anyone has in the chat or after all the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. I really appreciate those examples that you gave of the GSGF being implemented in the real world and having direct impacts on the global community. I know people who've been around this for a while, like I see Martin Brady in the audience, should feel really heartened and pleased with the work that they've done presenting this work to the global community and in our contributions. But without further ado, I'm going to pivot to Michele Melchiori from the European Commission's Joint Research Center. And his question is, where does Earth observation add the most value for moving beyond national aggregates? Michele, the floor is yours. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Josh, and thanks everyone.
And I can see your slides. I'm sorry, Michele, you're good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh, and everyone for the opportunity. So I'll try to provide a very short answer that is through disaggregation, capacity building, and data integration. This answer is, of course, incomplete, but in 4 slides, I'll try to transition you from EO products to harmonize the statistics. So in the next slide, we see how national average actually hide the spatial patterns, but also how geospatial data can uncover those patterns. This links back to what Claudio showed at the beginning. So disaggregation is key to map and quantify subnational and place-specific phenomena. A lot is known in the domain of statistics about the downsides of averages, but when we introduce geospatial data or data referred to locations, these data are also subject to limitation and biases, unfortunately coming from the spatial data properties. Here we can see an example of an Earth observation derived data to map human settlements and their characteristics. This is a key covariate or ancillary data, as we will see, to disaggregate data. In this image, we see building typologies in grid format. And let's think for a moment about census planning and reporting the average building typology at the district level to plan for the census versus mapping the distribution of building typologies in a 10-meter grid cells, like it's in this image. Of course, if a district has a certain average typology, we can have still a lot of variation, having very tall buildings and residential buildings where a lot of people should be interviewed next to probably an industrial facility that does not require the same effort. So Earth observation allow for a cost-effective data acquisition at scale. This is one of the properties of data coming from satellites, but also over a long period of time. So the acquisition are routine over time. Some satellites have daily acquisition time, other down to 5 days, but still very frequent. And this is really key for the concept of sustainability and scalability of operations. And also with the maturity of the Earth observation sectors, both private and public players are producing an increasing amount of data with increasing resolution and thematic accuracy, and also commercial services are becoming more accessible. In the next slide, we see an example of a product of the Copernicus product that has a space segment, so acquisition of satellite data, but also a variety of thematic services. In this case, a product from the emergency service that is actually a population grid. A lot is known by now about population grids. When we first started those activities back in the 2000s, it was not such a common practice. But of course, it's very easy to understand the difference between reporting the average density of a district versus the density of people at 1 kilometer grid cell. So in the next slide, we can see that the full